Very fantastic morning to all of my viewers and educators. Welcome to another special disruptive education live session with Getty Global Education and Training Institute. Theater can be very influential in all aspects of life. Participating in theater classes can stimulate students' creativity and thought process. The whole experience of theater makes people more aware and sensitive toward some various issues of the society. It also empowers the meek and makes people to do away with their reservations. So I'm your host Sudhir Kumar, and this morning we have a very special guest who would be discussing about the art of theater and how it would be assisting in the development of the students. So please join our hands together to welcome a very talented and very creative Mr. Vikramjeet Sinha. He is the Director of Building Art Therapy, New Delhi. Very welcome, sir. Very good morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So, sir, tell me about something about your work that what you do exactly and what point of your life wherein you get this idea.
About working with theater.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the context has been like this. That I have been working with theater since the last 20 years.
Great.
And theater is an applied medium.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of creates the context for learning. And when it creates this context for learning, what happens is that it allows for people to look at theater as a process rather than a product. Because most people understand theater as a way that we are going to lead to something, lead to a performance, lead to a very intentional community of someone watching and someone performing for you. So the idea of working as theater as a process, as a method, as a metaphor, as a vehicle for change is in the modern, it might look as something very recent or something very new, but actually it's quite ancient. And we can talk about how the Greeks and how Indian theater and how cave theater, also the cave art in a sense, arts in general, was often an educational process of educating human beings on many aspects of life. And I think this is something we have forgotten because of our colonial legacies. There is a certain amnesia of how theater is actually not just entertainment or just something you watch, but you can actually use it as a process, as a way of empowerment. And I think this particular thing I discovered when I worked in the juvenile homes for many years, and using theater as therapy. But in the classroom setup, to work in with at least school, I have been working with 10. So the idea, the classroom setup started in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, and in 2013 it started because I was looking at. The reason why I'm stopping is because it's echoing again and again.
I understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
and I keep hearing my voice.
Okay.
And that sort of disconcerts me from actually like thinking and telling you spontaneously.
Mhm. It's okay, sir. Please.
Yeah, so you have to bear with me with my pauses.
It's okay. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. I understand.
All right. Okay. Just to let you know that 2013 I started working with schools,
Mhm.
particularly Heritage School Gurgaon and Heritage School Rohini.
Right.
And while doing the process, I had to direct plays. And when I found myself directing plays, I thought that the children needed a lot of process work. Yeah, and So there's somebody who's saying that there is no link in. Can you just read it? I'm trying to move in and watch. Okay.
She is getting it. That's the reason she is commenting on it. I think it's live on the Facebook. I've seen
I
that,
see.
and yeah, so that's the reason
Okay.
she is responding on that.
So coming back to the question.
Sure, sir.
When I started working with theatre with these kids, I realized the children needed process work, and the children needed this process work primarily. Okay, so one thing is, if you go off, then I don't hear myself echoing. So maybe
Okay,
you could
so
yeah, this is better. So now I can clearly speak. Sorry. Now I can be more in a flow. I apologize to the viewers because I was hearing myself echo. So, so when I started working with children in Heritage School Gurgaon and Heritage School Rohini, I realized that the children needed more process work, needed something to be broken down for them to understand what's going on with their body, what's going on with the mind. I started using also literature in using the text in context of how I wanted to work with the children to get them an understanding of great literature. And this is where I understood that the courses which the classrooms, which the curriculum is providing, can be used as a way to actually break it down and make the children really understand what is going behind, the text, what is, and also to enter into their emotional bodies, into understand the psychological body. So theater then became a very interesting method and a process, not just to do the performance at the end of the but also to understand the curriculum, to understand the text in a better way. So there are two texts which actually work. One was called The Highwayman, and one was called The Kite Runner. Both were used in terms of using as a process for the children to understand the text better. And once the kids finished the play, in the years to come, when they had to study or when they had to talk about the play and talk about the text, they found it far more easier and really well to really to articulate it, because they had embodied the play, they had embodied the story. It was not so much about tell me and I will I will tell you back. It was more about let me experience it, not only just show me, but let me experience it, and I will never forget this experience. And once they've experienced with all their senses, the question of taking it out of the system doesn't arise anymore, because cognitively we can forget. But when we perform it, when we embody it, it goes deeper into our emotional bodies. And I think this, what happens is that it's not just a learning, a classroom learning or a cognitive learning. It becomes a learning for life, because it allows the life skills processes of communication, cognitive thinking, decision making, team building, interrelatability. All those things starts coming into the play itself. So once I discovered this, I thought to myself, aha, this is an important discovery in education. And I continued doing plays. And as I was continuing doing plays, I encountered two more schools, by Shivnadar village schools, in 2016, Bulandshahr and Sitapur. And that's where I started training and working with teachers, using this as a process of in classrooms. And then later on, I wrote this, well, not this book, but this essay in this book called "Think, Make, Learn" is a educational book on education, in a sense, on consilience. They've sort of published it, and there I have this essay called, let me read it: "Reimagining Classrooms Beyond Chairs and Tables," where I put this theory of my work in Sitapur and Bulandshahr and work in Heritage School Gurgaon and Rohini into a format, into a structure, into this essay, where I articulated what I wanted to say in terms of how drama or theater essentially can work as a alternative way or way of teaching curriculums, whether it's literature, whether it's history. I mean, I stuck to literature, but I think it can be used for many other subjects also, especially the arts. Yeah, I'm done with the first questions. Are you there?
Are you there? Yes, yes, I'm here, sir. So, that was quite an insightful thing, and then that you have worked even in the cities like Bulandshahr and the Sitapur. That's our remote cities and the tier two cities. So, how was the response over there? Of the kids and from the faculty members. That how did they responded to it, and what were the outcomes? We would like to know.
Okay, okay. So, so Sitapur and Bulandshahr they're the Shivnadar village schools. So the children come from very many remote areas or from villages. The teachers, however, come from urban areas and urban locations. So I would say that the teachers had more resistance to this format, where they had to let go of classrooms, formats, and settings of chairs and tables. We actually worked over the week where the teachers were also going to perform for the students. We were also doing this process, this whole thing of a structured way of teaching, and I took them through it. And I could see that the teachers were struggling to let go of the old, let go of try to really understand the concept and stuff like that. And they had their own resistance, because the teachers understood that teaching was in a certain way, and I was trying to break the hierarchy, because once you do this work, you have to let go of the hierarchy, that you are at the head, and the students will listen to you. The teacher drops this teaching business and gets into facilitation, and that requires far more active form of working, where the students are interacting more in an experiential way. It's non-hierarchical, and it is far more, you have to be really alert to everything and what's going on and what you're receiving and what's coming your way. And I think there was resistance. However, the resistance, it was not like something which cannot be worked through. Once the teachers understood, and once the students started responding to the teachers, they saw that the proof lied in the pudding. They would remember the teaching or the text or whatever it is, through poetry or whatever it is, far easily. And the student said, we can see it. We can visually see what you're saying, because we are doing it. And that allows then a certain kind of rigor, both from the teacher and the student, which is which creates a very intentional community, which creates a community structure between the student and the teacher, and it creates a deep bond. This is a very important thing to build trust. And once this happens, the student, there's a technical word for it, there's a positive transference. The student wants to do this more, is engaged and more curious, and wants to learn, and is looking forward to the teaching, rather than thinking it's a chore, because it appears like play, you see, and therefore it's non-threatening. And but it doesn't take away the rigor. It just makes it more playful and makes it more interesting. And it requires the teacher to put more hard work. Sometimes, or I wouldn't say hard work so much, but I would say more than to break the pattern of old ways of teaching. And it's always hard to let go of habits, because when we are doing something new, there is a risk element there. There's a feeling that, is this frivolity? Is this like a frivolous thing I'm doing? Or will I be able to complete the curriculum? This sort of thing, or it's just an experiment or an exploration, to really understand that this actually serious work, and seriously we can actually focus to do this, requires all the senses to be engaged. It's tough, but once you see the results, once you see the children being more excited and alive, and not dead sitting in the classroom, not the mind not going anywhere else, but actually engaged, even the most non-responsive children will start responding. There is a delight which the teacher feels. There is a sense of feeling, and that delight, that something really interesting happened here. Is something worth exploring. So I I wouldn't say it changed everything, because I think people go back to what they do and what the system provides. But I think for those moments and for those days, it was very good for the teacher student and those who were awake to this, and those who let go of the and those who were open to this learning and to me and to what I was trying to do. I think that I think they really liked it, and they really enjoyed it, and they gave me a lot of good feedbacks. Yeah, but it is, but I would, to be honest, it was a challenge to let the teachers let go of older patterns. I have to be completely honest about that.
I can totally understand it because I've been a trainer myself and I have been interacting with the teachers. So they have been teaching in the same manner we have been taught from last 15 to 20 or 30 years maybe, and it is quite hard to break the monotony. It is very hard to change their mind that okay, there are something new coming up, and you have to adapt these methodologies as well in order to enhance the learning and in order to get your children or the students ready for the new world. So that is quite an interesting thought which you have put across. So thank you so much for that. So now we would like to know that what are the benefits of theater in the education? As you have mentioned, one that children feel more alive and they are more receptive to it because so they are more alive because they are breaking the monotony of the regular classroom setup, and if you want to engage them in this experiential learning as the topic of the discussion today, so how it actually benefited from it. So we would like to know about
Okay, so let's begin with the first that why should we use drama in a classroom? Because I think the fundamental thing which we're using here is active imagination. And imagination is a very important aspect for growth, because it allows you to be many things which you are not, and it gives you autonomy, it gives you creativity, it makes you leap from the known to the unknown. It allows you to empathize with a lot of experiences which the character is going through. It it actually breaks away the disconnection between the text and in you. It makes it real, makes it alive. you know I can go across time and become a character, say Merchant of Venice in Shakespeare, and I can empathize what is to be like a Jew or someone who's marginalized, and what is the emotion behind vendetta or revenge, not just in an intellectual way, but actually connected, that someone hurts me, I would like to hurt back, and what are the ways of hurting back can be very creative, and but it eventually it's a fall of a character. And also to learn about bullying, because Shylock was bullied, by it was a herd mentality, and I think this contextual stuff at many levels, yeah, it's multi-contextual, and I think that is a learning which brings about, because it's a involvement of all the senses, and imagination is the key to bring this about. Also, there are a lot of research saying that if you use emotions and you use cognition and you use feeling, sensing, thinking, action, all those things together in drama, the learning goes far more deeper, as I was saying earlier on. So it involves so creativity, critical thinking, risk taking, innovation, meaningful communication, and of course creativity. These are the things which sort of come in when you teach, when you use drama in a classroom to teach. All these are life skill themes, and so one of the things I earlier on mentioned, it breaks the barrier between the teacher and the student. This is very important because it brings about trust. Let's take 3 R's, resource, relationship, and results. If you use, everybody gets the same resource to work, bring a result. But it's the relationship between the teacher and the student which brings about the good result. It's also the relationship the student has with other students, team building, the relationship with yourself, with the student itself, himself or herself, which brings about the result. So we're looking at relationship, and we're looking at relationship building, and role playing allows relationship building to happen in a fantastical way. And one more than anything else, it's very good for the teachers themselves, because it allows them to break the monotony and break the stress and actually have fun with the children, and create good childhood memories, good adolescent memories, good memories of school. I think does that answer your question?
Yes, it answers my question, and definitely. And we have some comments from the viewers as well. So give me a moment. Okay, so Madhurika Dhirabhaskar, she said that three resources, three R's, the resource, relationship, and a result. Very fantastic, ma'am. And she also said that it helps them to become problem solver because they can imagine or take up a character how he or she would act in certain situations.
Correct.
Okay, Dhatri Dubey, she is saying that it's amazing to see the connection between theater and the education. And again, Mrs. Dhiravaskar, even it helps to take out the emotion which are inside. So how do you think about this sentence which she has just mentioned? I think that children express themselves in several ways, like in the art form, they take out their emotions. So would this also help them to take out their emotions? I'm excusing myself from the screen so that it would not echo.
So when you say taking out your emotions, we are constantly emotionally expressing, but I think there is also a lot of suppression of the body, you know. So the emotion comes up, but the body doesn't necessarily express it in the way it should express. So, for example, the body is, of course, telling you what it is going through, but those non-verbal cues are often not taken in consideration. They're seen as distraction. They're seen as daydreaming. They're seen as disconnection. There's a lot of judgment in those cues which the child gives in a classroom, because the child is constantly expressing emotion through the body. For example, a child takes a pen and goes click, 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 click like that. This is obviously giving the emotion of restlessness. And underneath the restlessness is another emotion, which maybe is anger, agitation, annoyance, nervousness. I don't know what it is. It could be many, many things. Or it could be one particular thing, which is fear. You know, when someone takes the hair and starts twirling like this, a girl or a boy does this continuously. I have long hair right now, so I can twirl innumerable times. But say, someone twirling the hair, shaking the leg. These are all expressions of emotions. Uh, when we bring theater into this, there is a very disciplined intentionality to channelize the emotions through the body. So the body then becomes the vehicle to bring about adequate motor skills, balance, alertness, not laziness, not heaviness, not extra restlessness. So what happens to the emotions? The emotions get a vehicle or a channel, particularly using the body, to to express in a very focused way through the character, through the exercise. And as soon as that happens, it's not necessarily that it's always catharsis, which is, of course, what people theater. The word catharsis comes from the Greek sort of word, which is, of course, expression. Then all of that, but it's just not catharsis. It's also simultaneously a discipline which comes about. A discipline which means to be a disciple unto yourself, which means that suddenly, not regimentation, but allowing me to see an alignment between my body, my feelings, and my thoughts. Everything starts getting aligned. And if this is brought about as a discipline in our lives through the arts, then we're moving away from this space, from the head, heart, and hands. We are actually becoming holistic. We are not cut off only talking heads. We are actually becoming uh, much more alive to a lot of things, because the emotions then have a container. So container is very important. So what happens earlier on, that there is no container, so the emotion just bubbles through. So the emotion is coming out, but through nervousness, through agitation, through restlessness, through talking in class, daydreaming, not being fully there. But as soon as this happens, a container comes in, and the container is very important because it stops the emotion from just frothing and bubbling. It's like, you know, you have a pressure cooker, is a container, but at the same time there's a valve. So the letting out, the the constant incrementality of it. Slowly, the steam is let off, and that happens. What happens is the emotion, which is raw, becomes cooked. So I'm not just talking about catharsis out here. I'm talking about cooked emotion, processed emotions. The emotions gets processed. Does that make sense to you? We can be open for
Can be open
comments.
for
I'm just
comments. I'm just
putting out these
putting
things.
out these things. Yes, definitely it makes sense, and actually it gives us a very good perspective and a different perspective towards the thing, because we often talk to the psychologist and they have some traditional and the methodological outlook of such certain emotion and letting go of it. But as you have said, it actually makes sense that due to this art form, somehow they get a channel wherein they can express, they can let it go in a proper manner, like that in an incremental way. So this is quite intriguing actually. So Madhurika says that okay, she loves it, and body is the vehicle or medium to show emotions, and theater helps them to express in a disciplined way. Very true. So again, it's my curiosity that is there any difference between drama, play, and theater?
Hmm. There is.
There is.
Okay. Uh, so they're all connected. It's not that they are not connected, or in categories. Play is far more. It's more spontaneous. The mother plays with the child all the time. The children are playing with themselves. Play is a very important part of development. And I'm also an arts-based therapist. So I have the kind of a discipline between merging between therapy and the creative arts, and so I can actually say with a certain kind of a, I won't say authority, but with a certain conviction that play is a developmental process. It allows you. It's really important for cognitive skills to come about. And what happens is that when you're working with play, you see it all around you. You see the laborer on the road, and the child of the laborer playing with the sand. And then the child starts copying the mother or the father who's working. So you see then a mimesis taking place, through play. Children often start getting, when we were young, even now also I think they have all these little kitchen sets. So people start cooking in a playful manner. This is just spontaneous happening. There is no script to it. There is no intentionality to it. It is just and of course therapists use this often for to bring out things out of the child and allow the child a preparatory space. Whereas when you look at theater, there is an intentionality there. Sorry, yeah, with both theater and drama there is an intentionality. The intentionality is not there so much in play, and I think that's the main difference. And theater can also is also both theater and drama have a certain focus to it, towards a performance, towards an audience, and towards a particular task, and towards a certain discipline, which leads a certain linearity. Drama is more action oriented. Theater is much more space oriented, and I think they are interchangeable. There is an operation theater, there is a military theater. All these are theaters. These are space where an action takes place. The drama is far more emotionality associated. A theater can be also associated with a lot of performances. Drama, dance, opera, everything else. Drama also has that, but has a certain emotions attached to it, which allows a certain engagement. You know, when we have a theater space, an activist procession. I know there'll be a lot of these marches and stuff for that. The police lathi charge. Now that is also drama, but the theater is the area on which it takes place. So these are the kind of nuances where it sort of is different, and theater takes place in theater and drama both take in real life, but when you start putting them into a performance context, I think the performance context is very important. Whereas I think play can be more process oriented. Using a game, a playful game, you can understand a lot what is going on with the child or with the adult, how they're standing, how they're responding to you, what is their cues, all those kind of things. So play is much more process oriented, and that sort of leads us through spontaneity to a certain intentionality as such, towards a particular performance. So I use a lot of play in the beginning of a production, just to understand where the group is, and then slowly give a structure and technique to start looking at an audience, to look at as a product, and then again intensify further and further, moving them towards a certain kind of presentation, where it becomes what is called, it goes into this cook space, where it actually has a presentation. Now, here's the food, and there. So it's also interesting. I mean, I talk about cooking. It's also interesting. Indian aesthetics are really look at rasa as a thing. Now, rasa is not devouring. Rasa is a taste. So iska ras leda. So ras is a very important thing in Indian aesthetics. And why it's ras is because you bring that mindfulness to it. When an audience sits in and sees a different rasa coming through abhinaya, through whether it's Bharatanatyam, whether it's Kuchipudi, or whether it's Sanskrit play or anything else in the Indian context, you are not really devouring it, you're tasting it. And that is why I use the cooking, because I think, Indian aesthetics borrows a lot from the idea of taste. And taste is very interesting because taste allows you to savor it. And after you leave the performance, in theater, you sort of think about it. You think about it, and in play, it spontaneously happens and it's done with. But in performance, after it's done with, a good performance leaves you with a certain taste. Am I making sense?
Sorry. Yes, it actually makes sense. And in Indian context, a lot of things actually, moves around the cooking. Even if we divide the region, like in India, there's a coast pe badle boli and uh, कुछ कोस पे पानी, हर एक जगह पे चेंज होता रहता है, खाने पीने से लेके हमारा बोलने का भी तरीका चेंज होता है. एंड दिस इज हाउ द थिंग्स आर इन इंडिया. So these are very sensible points which you have just made, and again that gives me the clarity between the play, drama, and the theaters. Thank you so much for sharing that. So that brings me to the question about that how this art form, because CBSE also introduced in the education system now art integrated curriculum or the teaching or theater, that including the drama in the classroom settings as a storytelling method. So how necessary and how essential it is to implement this in order to enhance the teaching or the learning process.
So say that the question again. Bring that question again.
Okay, so that if we implement that art integrated or the drama integrated or the theater integrated curriculum or the classroom setting, is wherein we are teaching something through the storytelling or through the theoretical, how how it can improve the learning or the teaching. You have given us the glimpse in my first question, wherein wherein you were in Sitapur and in Bulandshahr, so they were facing problems. But somehow you overcome that problem, break the monotony, and come up with some new ideas. So, what suggestion you can give for the teachers that how they can associate their lesson plans or their teaching methods in such a manner wherein they get every student involved actively in the classroom?
Okay. So number one, it is participatory. And as soon as it is a participatory method, it's not a passive where the passive taking of knowledge doesn't take place. I'm not sitting in and thinking of someone just giving it to me. I think the experiential and participatory method is a very key. It's a key concept in bringing the child to be much more alive, and not like sitting ducks and just waiting, and looking at the teacher in one direction. The spew system, it's very it wasn't there before the colonial times in this country. In a sense, things were circular. The teacher was slightly in a higher level, and we were around. There was a tree, and or somewhere in nature, and the whole guru shishya parampara was going on because it was circle. And all traditional indigenous thing, I believe, before this church system, so this pew system of looking at the teacher as a preacher, as a pastor, this thinking much later. So there was much more circular, and I think when this becomes circular, that's why we use circles. It becomes much more interactive. You see everyone else. You're not seeing people in hierarchies. You're not seeing the backbencher, the front bencher, the side bencher. Who's close. It's not like I am with you. I'm with you. The teacher says, and I'm maybe slightly sitting on a cushion, slightly high, little bit, or perhaps whatever it is. That's what they used to have. But here I am actually with you. And even if I'm standing with you, we're doing things together. So that brings about direct experience. So direct experience is very important in bringing two things. One is embodiment, and second is in reflection and the system going deeper into your system. So it plays back then to you. What happens then is memory becomes stronger. My idea of processing and retaining what I have learned becomes stronger. You will find if you take a text, say history, like I did 1857 mutiny, because 1857 was removed. And I thought that it's very important for secular India to understand where divide and rule policy took place post 1857. In 1857 is where Hindus and Muslims together fought the colonial rule, even though maybe not in a national way, but even especially North India, through a book by Vishnu Varsaikar called 1857 Mutiny, which is a diary written during that time, a true account. Instead of taking historical account, we took a diary of a person who actually lived and saw this. We took this and we used puppetry and object theater and all of that for 7th grade. So I introduced this as an 1857 as a theme for 7th graders in 2017 or something, or 16, something like that, around that time. And children today will still remember what what Nana Sahib spoke, what went on with Tatya Tope. A lot of people didn't know the characters of outside Lucknow, for example. I don't think people know about Begum Hazrat Mahal, for example. So these characters who've just gone in history, nobody knows about them, who are very powerful, and very powerful components. They remembered it still till today after so many years. And why I'm giving you this example is because they wouldn't forget. And I know in 1857 was there earlier on. People had to learn military causes, political causes, pre the revolt, post the revolt. We had to memorize it. This rote learning was there. And till 2003, it was 1857 was in the curriculum because I taught it in a school once. But now when I performed it, for children, I got the children to perform it, they remember everything far easily. So retaining is very important. Visually seeing things as they happen. This is a very key point, which is different from text learning, and what we have to do right now is, in a sense, is that when we bring everybody together in this experiential participatory way, everyone is a learner. Everyone is a learner in a very active way because everybody is getting a direct experience. This is a very democratic way of functioning, and this allows then a very different kind of relationship with people. There are schools, Heritage School, for example, already has in the 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade, they have this thing of experiential learning, very much part of their stuff. And I sort of added on to it because the school was sort of open to this form of learning. But if more and more schools adopt this way of teaching, what happens is boredom goes away, sense of dullness goes away. This immediately brings about a greater receptivity of the brain. And for now, for example, a lot of people are Zoom sort of learning, and it's a great strain in the eye to just be focused on one point. Post this, whenever it happens, whenever we get back to our communities, drama and theater would be a great way to sort of really make education much alive, less hierarchical, far more fun, experiential, enjoyable, celebratory, where a child is not afraid to go to school or not feeling, like I have to sit again for such a long time. It allows the activity and not just wait for the sports period, but allows this blood to circulate. And from sitting ram road straight, we use all the senses, because did nature really make our eyes to look at computer screens? Did nature really make our hands to just hold books and write? Nature had other plans, and theater and arts are much more aligned to nature's plan rather than our cognitive civilizational goals.
So it was amazing, and means just glad to know that we have someone here who actually gave us a very quite different perspective toward the things. And I'm sure that our viewers and the principals and the teachers, they would definitely gonna imbibe these practices in in their regular classes. And especially, I really liked about your idea wherein the Gurukul system, everyone was the first bencher. There was no row system, and there was no preacher. They all have to adapt things, they all have to learn new things without any foundation. And I remember the time, means whenever we read about any poet or any writer in that era, so they are very well versed in so many languages. That time it is hard to learn any foreign language these days, but that time everyone used to know 5 or 6 language, and they were expert in those languages. And there was no schooling system, they were home taught, and they have been perfect in so many things. And we have great poets and writers of that era. So that's a great thing which we
Yeah.
have learned from you today. And definitely
And all,
when we
yeah,
involve the students, yeah, so
no, I just wanted to say that all the
please.
ruler, all the nowadays, for example, all the Muslim rulers, especially from Mughal times, particularly post Akbar, they learned all the languages, including Sanskrit, Persian, Arabic. They translated a lot of stuff, a lot of books, Hindu religious books into Persian. So Tipu Sultan, for example, knew Sanskrit. They knew the language of the classic stuff. They all. I mean, Tipu Sultan is much later. But all I'm saying is very important point you said, because this multiplicity of language is not just a language, but also a metaphor of many languages of being. And theater holds also many languages. It is a language by itself, and it holds many other languages within itself. It's just not a physical language, but another way of looking at the world, another way of communicating with the world. So I think we need to bring about this. We need to sort of think about that. Are we getting people to be just literate, or are we getting them to be educated? Because if it's really education, then we really have to prepare the child to face life, and just not to get jobs. And I think that is very important, which is constantly coming up again and again as a theme. Perhaps post-COVID, we really need to look at this more clearly, and I think the CBSE has brought in this idea of using arts and theater in classrooms. I think this is a really golden opportunity for all of us to sort of, as a community, to look at theater as a process, or are the arts as a process to prepare for life.
And definitely for this, we would be needing guidance from the expert like you. And definitely, we are going to enhance the community in such a manner wherein we get the participation, we get the students who are actually ready to face the life, because they are quite vulnerable these days. They cannot handle their emotions, they cannot handle the pressure and the life skill you talk about. So they have very less life skill, especially if I talk about in the urban cities or the metro cities. In the rural areas, they have a lot of complex situation already to face on day-to-day life, so they somehow are familiar with those things. But the more facilities and the luxuries we are getting in our life, the more reluctant we are becoming towards the new things coming on our way. So that's a great message which we have received from you, sir. And definitely we would be needing your guidance, your support in order to go ahead with this.
Sure.
Sure.
So you have written this word called disruptive education, and I just thought to myself, it if you want to redesign, you have to disrupt. You have to disrupt the old in order to design. You can't design without disrupting. So disrupting is very important. Um, and how is it different from rupture? Because I think the word rupture is there. So because ruptures are constantly there in our lives, we're often ruptured in many ways. And especially, for example, this COVID thing has really ruptured our daily existence. So if you have to redesign to get back the rhythm, we have to look at this rupture not as a breakdown, but as a disruptor, and as a disruptive way uh, to bring. Basically, what I'm saying is to take this obstacle into an opportunity. This disruptive sort of, which is now what we're thinking about, can be really a way to redesign, because it is only through disrupture that we can actually design, or redesign. That's what I want to say. Does that make sense?
Definitely, definitely, 100% it makes sense. And again, destruction is a way of construction somehow, and nature always do that with us. She
Yeah.
always shows that she is the main power. You
Right.
have to go by my rules. So, great talk we had today, and thank you so much for giving us your valuable time and your wonderful inputs. And definitely, the viewers and the principal who are watching us gonna take some inputs from it and would implement the theatrics and the role plays in their day-to-day classroom setting. And I really like that example wherein you have imbibed that story of 1957 revolt in the play, and somehow
1857.
they 1857 revolt story, and they somehow imbibe and they remember it even right now. So that I also give that example that you don't remember your history chapters or the geography chapters from your fifth or sixth class, but you remember the craft and art and craft which you have made because your 100% attention was there, your interest was there. That's the reason you remember it even after today. So this is the quite learning experience for me as well, and for all of our viewers today. So thank you for giving us your time. So before we leave for the day, any last message you would like to give to everyone?
Uh, yeah. So I just want to quote from this particular thing. This line which I say: "Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I'll may not remember. Involve me and I will understand." So this. I think this is a theme which this line really resonates with me. How do we get young people or people around us involved so that the wasteland? T.S. Eliot often talked about this wasteland as we as living dead. You know, I think modern civilization, this alienation, this disconnection, this constant media sort of really disconnects us. So if we create an education which is involving experientially, we'll not forget. And memory is very important because memory is that string which connects our past, present, and our future. And we redesign our future constantly. And if we have no sense of future, like what's happening, a sense of despair comes in, a sense of futility comes in. We don't really feel alive. But children and all of us, in quoting Bob Dylan, you know, we contain multitudes. And I think this is what is resonating in my head. We contain multitudes, and that is why we can really go through difficult times, and because we have a sense of future within us, because we have memory, and memory is very important, because memory creates us, gives us impulse to move forward. uh, with that, I'm sort of signing off. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Same here, sir. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And thank you everyone who are watching this video and commenting on us and being with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay home, stay safe, and stay happy. Thank you.
Bye.